And again, I just read this for the first time about a half an hour ago. And it probably makes sense to just kind of go through it just together and then see what kind of reaction we have to all of this. So on Sunday, I wasn't aware, maybe this is, the timing on this is off, but The Power of Ritual is the book that she's referring to. Casper ter Kules, I guess. And just let's go through the bullets. I mean,
all right.
The introductory thoughts, those first couple of bullets are pretty thought-provoking, actually, right? How can we think about the ordinary things that we do each day as spiritual practices? Well, you know, certainly that was not lost on me when I was talking about holding a newborn and giving a little Gwyneth May a bottle. You know, but we could stay on that for a second. And I don't think is the meat of the matter of what she was trying to get to with this session we were going to go through with her this morning. What are the ordinary things that we do each day that are not at a different level, that are not ordinary? You know, Joe Modica gets a big kick out of showing us the church calendar. Just about every semester, he pulls out the church calendar and says, "Okay, where are we on the church? Seasons of the church?" And lo and behold, the bulk of the time, half the time on the church calendar is ordinary time.
Right.
And he talks often about, what is it that's, what goes on in ordinary time? It's the ordinary time of our lives, not just the ordinary time in a church calendar. And, it's how you spend your ordinary time that really defines your life in a lot of ways. I don't know, maybe we could go around and what are the ordinary things that we do every day that when looked at through a different lens can be perceived as a spiritual practice?
Well, one is waking up and the other is going to sleep,
Amen.
Thank you for the day, and thank you for the new day.
Yeah.
Giving thanks.
Well, we walk every morning.
If I should die before I wake.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Cheryl and I walk every morning. A bunch of you probably see us. We often see the Tates on our walk, but yeah, we walk 3 miles every morning, and that's our time together. And it's time to be outside. I just love being outside early in the morning.
So similar to Doug, Angela and I walk our dog, and it's always checking out, what wildlife are we seeing today? The hawks, the eagles, the buzzards, all the little chipmunks and everything else. It's just it's fun to look for
them. I'm still amazed at how much I get riveted to seeing a sunrise if I was driving in this morning to the men's group. It just every time it just captivates me.
I think this first bullet has 2 aspects of it that we could talk about. All of us are Christians, and we're churched, and so we relate the ordinary things to our faith in God and Jesus Christ. And I think that's pretty easy for us to talk about. I think the harder thing is what's meant by spiritual practice, especially for those people who are nuns. Like my sister isn't a nun, but she seems to have gravitated towards Hinduism or some form of Hinduism, and she talks about her spiritual allegiance to the energy of the universe or whatever. And I struggle to understand her spirituality, but it's her spirituality. She kind of relates the good things that happen to her or the bad things that happen to her to good energy in the universe or bad energy in the universe. But for those who say they're nuns, you wonder how they relate an ordinary thing to spiritual practice, if any, or if they just are living their life from ordinary thing to ordinary thing. And I think evangelism for us has to do with some way of connecting with people who might see themselves as a nun to considering a spiritual practice of some sort that might eventually connect them to God. James, you can probably quote Thurman's quote at the very beginning of his book, Jesus and the Disinherited, that says that there are lots of people that aren't Christian, but they're still they're spiritual, or they're faithful to God, but that's at some point they're going to meet Jesus Christ.
Right.
and I always, that quote really struck me as an answer to a vexing question that a lot of people have about Jesus being the only way to the Father. But
Yeah,
I think
I'll
this-
quote it right here. I'll quote it right here. To some, God and Jesus may appeal in a way other than to us. Some may come to faith in God and to love without a conscious attachment to Jesus. Both nature and good men besides, and he means men and women, but this was written a long time ago, besides Jesus may lead us to God. They who seek God with all their hearts must, however, someday on their way meet Jesus. End of quote. Sorry,
Well,
keep
it's-
going, Scott.
for-
Sure.
For me, my daily concern every day is, I never knew you, Sandy. Jesus saying that to me. And, that's horrifying to me that Jesus would say, Sandy, I never knew you. And so every day, that's the theme of my day. It's to make sure that I don't forget. In my prayers at night and as I wake up in the morning, it's, I believe in you, Jesus. Please forgive me for my sins. Thank you for forgiving me of my sins. And I know your yoke is, at any rate. What I want to say though about the spiritual practices is that I make friends. So my latest friends are the kings, those Epiphany kings that came to visit Jesus. So Jesus is God, those kings aren't God, and whatever their names were. But the kings came with gold, frankincense and myrrh, and that's last week's. That's where we are in the church year. We're 12 days after Christmas or whatever. At any rate, gold. I don't have gold. King. Hey, King. I don't have gold. Well, you have some stuff, but King. What my understanding of your gold is faith. I believe in Jesus. I think Jesus likes the fact that I believe in him. What about the frankincense? Well, I'm not a very good prayer warrior. I don't pray. I don't think I'm that good at praying, really, guys. I really don't. But the prayer wafts up to God. He wants us to pray. And, and that's the frankincense. And how about the myrrh, John the Baptist? What about the myrrh, my buddy Baptist? Well, it's repent, Sandy. Repent of your sin bucket. Well, all right, Baptist, I'm going to repent. You're my friend, by the way. I'm sorry you lost your head, but I love you, dude. And I'll see you, dude, by the way. Groffy's going to see you.
As I think about and what we're saying and read the notes from Katy, I'm convicted of, I feel like I check in with God in the morning and then I live my day not very much aware of God, and hopefully before I fall asleep, I kind of check in with God again, and was struck by being over in the Holy Lands with the Islamic influence of being hearing the call to prayer for Muslims, was it 5 times a day, and how that you could say interrupts, but also you could say reconnects them with their faith personally and also as a community. And you can talk about whether it's real prayer or ritualistic prayer or something like that, but I found myself wishing that I had some kind of a reminder during the day to even just to look around and do God sightings or practice some kind of spiritual discipline of awareness.
So there's a song by a guy named Gregory Alan Isikoff.
Isaacoff.
Isikoff?
No,
I get that?
Isaacoff. He went to Radnor High School.
No way.
Yeah, he's a friend of my son's.
No
Wow.
way.
Yeah.
So he wrote a song called the Stable Song.
Yes.
James, are you familiar with this?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Here's the first verse. Remember when our songs were just like prayers, like gospel hymns you called in the air. Come down, sweet reverence, unto my simple house and ring and ring. And it goes on to the break, ring like silver, ring like gold, ring out those ghosts on the Ohio, and on it goes. But that first verse always stood out to me as where the ordinary, and you know, my family, we all of us, you know, play music or whatever and sing together. And there's something so spiritual about such a simple thing. Like gospel hymns you called in the air, come down, sweet reverence. When songs were offered up like prayers, there's something so ordinary and basic about making music and singing with your family or with whomever, but it's where the ordinary becomes extraordinary. It's one of those moments. It's like feeding the baby. It's when the ordinary becomes extraordinary, I suppose. Anyway.
I would agree totally. And I think God is in music in many, many ways. It's kind of when we talk about connection here, right? Practices of connection is what this paper talks about, Casper School, right? And music connects people. It's a universal language at some level. We may not all like the same music, but generally speaking, it's hard not to feel connected when there's music.
And absolutely. And so, you know, the list goes on. I love to cook. In particular, I love to cook for my family, but I also love to cook for friends. Cooking, I don't think it gets any more ordinary than that. But Suzanne asked me recently, goes, why do you love cooking so much? And I said, well, I got to think about that. I'm not sure. And then I did think about it. And I think the simple answer is it's a way of expressing love. It's such an ordinary thing. It's like a song being offered up as a prayer. You know, making a dish to feed your family or your friends is such an ordinary thing. But clearly, when you strip it down to its essence, it's a spiritual practice. And I think it fits Katy's definitions here quite well. I'd be lost without the ability to cook. How else do you? It's a lot harder to express love in other ways. Cooking is an enjoyable and simple way to do that, I would think.
Well, I don't know about most of you, but I never have an ordinary day. I think I fortunately had a real good job, and every day was a good day, and every day was not ordinary. And I still don't have them. As Tim was saying, just going out and taking a walk and looking around and take the headphones out. Well, you're listening to music. That's, as James was saying, that's good as well. But I think every day is special. And I think we're given 3 gifts in life. We're given, as James said, we're given today and we're given tomorrow. But I think one of the best gifts is we've been given yesterday, because that's where our memories are. And I think each day we get 3 gifts. And so to me, nothing's ordinary. I think every day is extraordinary. Just a new face, a new person, a new sound. Some people go through life with blinders on. I fortunately have been given the gift, I guess, that I can see 180 degrees around and see what's around. Every day there's something new. And those that don't take advantage of that, I think they're missing. And we also live in a very Christian country. I mean, there's 1 billion+ people in India who believe like Scott's sister, who I don't think they're any less gifted than I am, having Christianity. If they're spiritual, they have a belief in something. And gosh, what better gift than to have that?
The expression is today is a gift. That's why we call it the present.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm looking at a book here that I'm studying with the author, The Conscious Classroom, and her name is Amy Edelstein. I've got a meeting with her later today, but funnily, you should mention, Sal, Gregory Alan Isaacoff, because her family and his are quite connected. And in her book, she quotes 3 of the verses of the stable song. So I'll just keep reading. Now I've been crazy, couldn't tell you. I threw stones at stars, but the whole sky fell. Now I'm covered up in straw, belly up on the table. Well, sang and drank and passed in the stable. That tall grass grows high and brown. Well, I dragged you straight in the muddy ground, and you sent me back to where I roam. Well, I cursed and I cried, but now I know. Ring like crazy, ring like hell. Turn me back into the wild-haired gale. Ring like silver, ring like gold. Turn these diamonds straight back into coal. I mean, he's an interesting character, beautiful songs. And our son Mike has been out to Colorado to listen to him a couple of times in concert. He's become very, very popular.
Yeah.
So far, everybody seems to have talked about what they experience in the day as to connecting them to things that are spiritual. What about through the day when you have decisions to make? Some of them simple, some of them more complicated. Do you ever get drawn to thinking about, well, what are the implications of what's the right thing to do and what's the wrong thing to do? What's the right answer and wrong answer? I think that can keep you connected, you know, if you spend time thinking that way in how you make your decisions.
It's a great point, David.
Seems like the notes that Katy has drawn from this book talk not only about ritual spiritual practice, but also community. And I'm thinking how much in COVID has accentuated this for me, but I used to go to a gym to work out. Now, when I work out, I go downstairs to our basement. I'm alone. On our trip for our meals, the restaurants often had a row of table that could fit 10, 12 people, but also tables for 2. And it was a whole different experience when I was sitting with people around me eating than just sitting across, you know, from Lee, who I love and enjoy eating meals with. But community, connecting with other people is important, both emotionally and I think spiritually.
Agreed. One of the anomalies for me, particularly in prayer services, but also simply, is being silent with other people in community. So silent prayer, which, you know, happens every Sunday morning in room 207 at Wayne Presbyterian Church. We just sit for 20 minutes in silence. And it's an amazing communal activity. And then, you know, Buff, my wife, gets up at 5 o'clock every morning, spends an hour in her prayer room. And now that is together, but it's together with God, and you're not alone when you're with God. So to David's point, I think, you know, when one's got matters weighing on you and you can discern, go to God in prayer to help listen for God's advice. I think there's many opportunities during a day to include God in the conversation. And, you know, I have to admit, I don't always do it, but at least I know it's possible and hugely valuable. I mean, one example, the very first time I played cricket for my high school, I was very young. I got taken on some summer thing to the school called rugby, where rugby was invented, the game rugby. We're playing cricket and I'm opening the innings for our cricket, and I was scared to death. And the opposition brought in their fielders, right? They're all 18, 19 years old, and I'm, I don't know, 15 or something. And I was scared to death. Well, I prayed to God, you know, please help me focus on the friggin' ball and not all those 18-year-olds gathered around the bat. So yeah, anytime you've got a situation or an emotion, I think you can bring God into it.
So
why are we
James,
still
don't leave
having
us
so many
hanging.
Why are so many people on Zoom? I mean, Frank's there every week.
Well,
David's there.
I'm the
I'm
one with the
invited,
least excuse, because I'm only 5 minutes walk from the church, but I was doing yoga up until 2 minutes before this. So I don't know.
I don't know. I think sometimes we can take that excuse of having the pandemic. It's you got to go forward. And you got to get out there and do. And I don't know. I just think that we all too often kind of use it as an excuse.
What,
It's too
Zoom?
easy.
I think God's on Zoom.
No, I don't think so. I think he's struggling. Well, I don't know. He probably is, but I
I'll
miss people.
share. I'll share a story about that. Suzanne and I head down to North Carolina for the winter. And before the pandemic, when we started going down for longer periods of time, I started going to a small Presbyterian PCUSA church in Southport, North Carolina. And, all well and good, a small church, nice people, but I mean, not you guys, not the people that I've known for 20 something years or more at the church. And there was something missing. And when the pandemic hit and all of a sudden we were Zooming in, I'm zooming into Thursday morning men's ministry. I'm zooming into Joe's class. I'm zooming into, live stream church. And all of a sudden I felt I was reconnected with my brothers and sisters at Wayne Pres. And it was, to me at that point, just such an unbelievable blessing that I could reacquaint myself with everyone. Because I mean, being down there for 6 months or 5 months at a shot, you start to lose your, you're losing your connections. So at least for me, and at least in this particular way, Zoom was and continues to be a blessing. I do believe that God's here. I believe that God gave us these tools so that we could stay in touch with one another when it's not safe to be in the same room together. Now, you could go beyond that as an excuse. Yeah, I'm lazy. I'm sitting here in my office every Thursday now. I haven't come in a long time, but Zoom has been a gift, and I believe it was God's gift, and it helped me stay connected to you guys and to all the other activities at church that I so desperately missed when I was down in North Carolina.
So the dean of Oxford before the Reformation, this guy is Erasmus's was born in Erasmus's year in 1467. His name was John Colet, and he and Erasmus were buddies. And this is before any of the Presbyterian folks of the Reformation, before any of the Lutheran folks of the Reformation, before any of the Anabaptist folks of the Reformation. John Colet is a dean at Oxford, and his buddy is there for 5 years, Erasmus, who's going to do the New Testament. At any rate, could you imagine? Well, two things. First of all, what's John Colet? Well, John Colet, he died before he got to see the Reformation. And what he basically told Erasmus to do is get hopping, buddy. You got to do the New Testament. You better know your Greek and get working. Because there's work to do. But at any rate, Colet is known for all you need are two things, in case you guys see him up in heaven. You see John Colet, two things you need, the Bible and the Apostles' Creed. Those are the two things according to John Colet. And this is before John Colet really even saw the Bible. The Vulgate is not, well, I hate to say, at any rate, he didn't see it. And what I'm saying about Zoom is you guys can hear this message as clearly from me speaking in some closet as me, being present with you. Come on.
So James, don't leave me hanging. What happened when you were praying for your cricket game?
Well, it was very funny because my recollection was I felt safe, right? So in my memory, I felt safe, and I don't know what happened. However, this last year, I connected with all these cricketers from that very same game 50 years ago. And apparently there's a little write-up in the school magazine that I lasted for an hour and a half or something, which is incredibly boring. I just stayed there. It was like, thankfully there wasn't a big crowd and nobody had to watch it, but I did my job, apparently, held up my end, as we say in cricket.
Wow. And I thought watching baseball was boring. An hour and a half, it must be even more so.
Oh no, this is way slower than baseball.
Well, speaking of rituals and where do people go to find community, if you think about it, sports is a big part of that. Sports is a connecting point. I never run out of stuff to talk about with my son, but if God forbid I ever got close to that point, all you got to do is say, "Go Birds." And then we got a half an hour discussion about the makeup of the team and the playoffs and everything else that's going on. I mean, there are points of connection and there are places that we go to find community that, for our group, whoever said this before is right. We're Christians or we're members of Wayne Pres, and I guess it's kind of obvious where we go to find community. It's right here, and it's in Sunday worship and it's in the Bible study classes and things. But
Yeah.
But for people that are more secular, there are places that they go where they find connection and find community that we would think of as, well, that's also a part of my life. But for them, that's where they go to find community. And I think I do as well. I'm not a fanatic, but I enjoy the sports.
Well, there's community and there's community. I firmly believe that the church community is the one which, when you're really in need of support, that members of that community will sacrificially help you. Other communities are based around an enjoyment or a pleasure or something, but then when things get tough, they may not necessarily be willing to give up of themselves to really help you through a tough time. And I don't mean just bringing a meal over to you one time, but I mean when you really need help that's taking time. The church is most likely to be the community that supports you through those really tough times. And I think that's the difference in my mind between a church community like Wayne versus say a group of people that like to play cards together or go to games together. Those are community, and you make good friends that way. But if they're not part of your church community, they may not be as likely to do things for you when you're really in a tough strait.
Yeah, that's an interesting declaration or assessment. It seems to me in some areas, and that may not be true. It may be that in some parts of Sweden or Scandinavia or England or America, heaven forbid, community is more than church. And in fact, your geographic community or your sports community or I can't think of a good example, but would everyone come running to the door and bring food around? And it seems to me we've grown away from that. In the old days, your clan and your cave was your community, and likely you'd be fighting the next door community, but at least your community was broader than your family and it wasn't your church. But it's an interesting thing to discuss.
Yeah,
Thomas Aquinas. You think you can escape Thomas? I'm sorry, Scott, but Thomas Aquinas, we all know about him. He was asked at the end of his life, well, what do you believe, Thomas? You've done all this work. What do you believe? He says, I believe what the church believes. Well, Thomas, you got to do better than that. You got to believe not what the church believes. You've got to be able to elucidate what you believe, not just what the church believes. You've got to elucidate. And that'll be a discussion up there with him to say, did you know what you believed? Aquinas, come on. You've got to be able to elucidate it, please. I love you, man. Come on.
I think it's a really good exercise to think about what we believe.
Thank you.
Specifically, individually, and personally.
Good.
I'm on a quest right now to figure out what I believe and how I've come to believe it through, from the minute I was born till this very minute. And it does, a lot of it is subconscious, right? According to the latest brain science, 90% of it is subconscious. My beliefs are, in the background. But it's important, very important.
Hey, I'm keeping an eye on the clock, and one of the things I value about our time together is some prayer time. So how about if we switch to that, who and what are some prayer concerns we can be connecting and praying for today?
Just a second, do you want to record these or you want to stop for this? We typically don't record prayer concerns.
I would stop.
Okay, stop's fine, yeah.